Say whatever you want, but I'm not going to stand for
brother,
personal
you got it wrong.
Say
you were
whatever you want.
preposterously and stupidly wrong. So, okay, all right. Can I just finish a goddamn thought ever on this show?
No, not if you're personally.
Well,
I admitted I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
I'll just say it's great to see you Democrats all getting along so well.
You're tuned in to Kaz TV.
If you're new to this channel, welcome. Make sure to like, leave a comment, and share with somebody you think needs to see this if you find any of this valuable. Let's go back to the video.
I think that's right. And I mean, Professor Lichtman, you correctly forecast the result of 9 of the past 10 US presidential elections, but not this one. Like most pollsters, I have to say, very, very few people predicted a big win, other than I might, if I may be so modest, I did. I went on Fox News 10 days before with Brian Kilby and said, I think he's going to win big. But actually, most people thought it would be incredibly tight and it could go either way and so on. But it wasn't that at all. Why do you think Trump is so difficult to poll? Which is clearly the conclusion I would draw from this.
Well, you know, I am forthrightly willing to admit I missed this election. I still think I actually had 10 out of 10 before. I think I was right about 2000, but we're not here to litigate that. I still think it's a pretty good record.
All right, this guy, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but Allan Lichtman, he's a professor at American University, and he's been kind of bragging about how he can predict, you know, the election with his system. And everybody called him the Nostradamus of elections, and how he's been right about almost all of them. And he got this one wrong.
Now, I think two things are operating here. Number one, I was incredibly critical at the time of the spineless, cowardly Democrats openly and viciously trashing their elected president and their elected nominee right out there in the open. I have never seen that before, and I've studied American politics since the founding, and that tainted any nominee. And they're now taking no responsibility for that. They're blaming everybody else. Until they look in the mirror, the Democratic Party is going to be in trouble. Secondly, why did my keys miss? Because my keys are based upon the proposition that a pragmatic, rational electorate decides whether or not the White House party is governed well enough to get 4 more years.
Okay. So essentially he's saying, no, my system works. It only works when people are rational and people really understand what goes on. Since when do people in elections, in 2020, in 2016, in 2008, like, when did people say, we are rationally just going to think about who we're going to elect as president? When did people say, we're rationally going to come to this conclusion? It's always been about emotion. Since everyone can vote, it's always been about emotion. If it wasn't, then celebrity endorsements wouldn't matter. Spending money on campaign ads wouldn't matter if it's all about logic and reason. That's not the truth. The truth is most people usually are irrational when it comes to the polls. People on the left say that about people on the right. People on the right say that about people on the left. Both people are saying that. Both parties are saying that. So the fact that he's trying to blame this on, well, people are just irrational this time is crazy. The fact that this guy can't see, you know what? Maybe your keys are off. Maybe the American people think differently than you're trying to put them in a box to think. Maybe they care about things that you didn't take into consideration. And he's not admitting that. Sometimes that's the problem I have with people in academia is sometimes they're out of touch with reality. You know, in the past, people would go to college, go to university, and then when they'd get out in the real world and they'd see the real world doesn't work the way that my professor said it would work. They say, you know what? My professor ripped me off. I'm going to adjust and buy into the way the real world works. But that professor is still there at his university in his closet full of books where he still lives in this theoretical world. And in that theoretical world, it doesn't always line up with reality. And instead of saying, you know what, maybe my theories are off, they say, no, something with reality is off. And it seems like that's kind of where he's going here.
That was exploded this time by a new wave of disinformation that we've never seen before. In addition to the usual sources of disinformation, we had a huge change this time. A 300 billionaire, a guy who's richer than most countries of the world, who controls X, spreading vast disinformation. According to reports, billions upon billions of viewers saw his disinformation. People have a completely distorted view of the economy.
What was the disinformation?
Inflation is going up.
Let me pin you down on that, though. You say Elon Musk was spreading disinformation. Like what?
Yes, he is spreading vast disinformation that's sunk in. Even people who think their own financial situation is pretty good think inflation is going up when it's been cut by 75%, that unemployment
but it's still
is
inflation.
a near high when it's
still inflation,
near
Professor.
a low.
On that point, see, it's interesting. You would say that's disinformation, but the point is that inflation is still not zero. Therefore, prices are still going up. Therefore, people...
The only way you get inflation to zero is with a recession.
Yeah, but here's my point.
Obviously.
Here's my point. Yeah, but here's my point. Democrats kept telling the American people rather arrogantly, I thought, the economy's in really good shape. Meanwhile, inflation still exists. In other words, prices have continued to go up and up and up, albeit not at the same rate they were going up. But if it wasn't zero, and it wasn't, it was like 2.5% or whatever by the end, that is still inflation. So it's not disinformation to say
the only
Americans
way
are still
you get it to
suffering inflation.
zero is a recession, is deflation. That's ridiculous. Inflation has been cut by 80%, but it's not just inflation that people are wrong about.
But do you accept
it's
inflation means prices are still going
economy.
up? Do you accept prices were still going up?
Of course.
Right, so
they
that's the point.
always do, unless you have a recession.
That's not disinformation,
That's ridiculous.
then, is it? By Elon Musk,
and
that
it's
isn't
disinformation about every other aspect of the economy as well. Disinformation about undocumented immigrants.
So here's what I was saying earlier about what the academics do. They say, well, theoretically, this isn't really what's going on. But people are actually experiencing, wait, the price of eggs was not this much a couple years ago. It is going up. And my salary has not gone up. There's an issue there. That matters to people. That's not disinformation. That's maybe they don't have the correct exact term of how he defines inflation. But the idea that, hey, people are paying more for things than they were at one time and their salaries haven't caught up is an issue to people. And again, he's not seeing that his theoretical worldview is not lining up with reality. So instead of changing his worldview to line up with reality, he's trying to change reality to line up with the worldview. And that's not how it works in the real world.
Like they're the bloodthirsty killers. They are the most law-abiding segment of our society. According to numerous studies, including by the Libertarian Cato Institute, they commit crimes, including violent crimes, less than half of that of Native Americans. And they don't drain our economy. They are the mainstay of the agricultural, construction, personal service, hospitality industries. Studies show you will drive the economy into a recession if you go through large-scale deportation of immigrants, and you will sweep huge numbers of U.S. citizens because all the databases used to identify undocumented immigrants are fundamentally flawed. You can't have a pragmatic electorate under these conditions, and the mainstream media is utterly feeble. It spends 20 times more time on meaningless polls within the margin of error than it does telling truth to power and indicating the consequences of this election.
But it is
it's being taken over by billionaires.
Okay, I'm going to come to Cenk. I mean, Cenk, the biggest deporter in American presidential history was Barack Obama, who deported over 3 million people. This idea that Trump is going to become some outlier in terms of mass deportation. The great mass deporter was actually a Democrat president, Obama, by a long way, by the way. So this idea of disinformation, I think some of it was disinformation, but it's, I think the idea that this election was only won through right-wing disinformation, I'm afraid, I view that as a total delusion by the Democrats. Again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm sorry, but I totally disagree with Juan and Professor Lichtman. Don't blame the voters. I think, look, we could get into this discussion, but Juan, I think you're blaming the voters. I think that's a terrible idea. Look, I debated Professor Lichtman before. I told him his theories about the keys were absurd. I was right. He was wrong. I said he'd lose his keys.
No, you were
couldn't
not
find
right,
them
and
before
I
the
was
election.
not wrong.
My prediction, based on the keys to the White House system, which has been right for 40 years, is that we are going to have a precedent-breaking president, that Kamala Harris will become the first woman president of the United States.
See what I mean? Clearly, this guy was wrong. Clearly, he did not get the election right. Clearly, he was wrong. And he's still, as wrong as he is, he still says, oh, no, I wasn't wrong. And that's what happens when you're in a field where you feel as though people are constantly looking up to you. You have more knowledge than everyone else. And you are the person that's the gatekeeper of what's right, true, and knowledgeable, because you're working with students constantly day after day. Again, I'm not going after professors. I'm not going after people in this industry because it's needed and there's great people that are in this line of work. But the ones that let it get to their head, like this guy, that clearly cannot admit he was wrong, is a problem.
That's a cheap shot, and I won't stand for it.
Well, who won, brother?
You should not be
Who
taking
won?
cheap
Who
shots
won?
at me.
Who
You
won?
want to make your
You
point,
live
make your
in a
point.
total
Don't make it
world of
personal.
denial.
I read your own followers' comments, and they all trashed you, every one of them, and supported me. So
Yeah,
quiet with your personal
Yeah,
attacks.
come find out again.
Make whatever
Okay.
point you want.
Yeah.
Don't
Look,
make
you
it
You
personal.
don't know anything. You don't know
You
anything.
attacked me
You
personally.
You're so deluded.
Oh, right. I've only been a professor for 51 years.
On this program,
published
I've never been
13
able
books.
to finish a
How
thought.
many books have you published?
It doesn't matter how many books you've published if you were wrong, if your information is not true. It doesn't matter if you're a professor. It doesn't matter if you have so many degrees, if it doesn't line up with reality. That's where this guy is just disconnected. He doesn't understand. And it's just tragic to watch a grown man like this, where he literally, I don't even know if he can see that he was truly wrong. I think he really believes he was right. I don't know. I just do not get it. That's why, everybody, do not let pride go to your head. You always need people around you to say, hey, you're not as bad as people say you are, but you're not as good as people say you are either. And if you don't have those people saying you're not as good as people say you are, you end up like this.
No, because you're personally attacking me again. Say whatever you want, but I'm not going to stand for
brother,
personal
you got it
attacks.
wrong.
Say
you were
whatever you want.
preposterously and stupidly wrong. So, okay, all right. Can I just
Don't
finish
call
a
me
goddamn thought
stupid.
ever on this show?
No, not if you're
Okay,
personally
well,
I
you proved
admitted
it.
I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say, it's
What kind
great
of
to see
nonsense
you
is that?
Democrats
Yeah, I
all
know.
getting
Who
along
taught
so
you
well.
manners?
It's lovely to see a
one. Can I
post-election
finish a
harmony as you all
goddamn
come
point?
together
We're
again.
just one
Alan,
right now.
shh. Hey, Alan, you deserve a tall glass of shut-up juice, so can you just shut up for a second and let someone who knows what
Not
they're doing
if you're
so
gonna
right,
personally
Piers.
attack
You're
me.
so right.
So-
We're so
Make any
unified right
point
now.
you
It's
want.
So-
I will not sit here and stand
So-
for personal attacks, for blasphemy against me. You don't need to do that. You don't boost your own
Blasphemy
ego
against you?
by
Who the hell are
attacking
you?
me
Are you
like that.
Jesus
Just
Christ?
Blasphemy. Blasphemy? This guy has got some identity issues or something. If he believes that someone making fun of him or even disagreeing with him is blasphemy, that's blasphemous. Let's keep going.
You
Your points.
loser. Okay, can I
points.
just give the correct answer for once? Okay, here we go. So, guys, you're blaming disinformation. There was disinformation. There was the cats and the dogs nonsense. The points you're making about undocumented immigrants, I agree with, Alan, okay? But that didn't cost the election. The main disinformation was about how the election was going to be rigged. And it wasn't rigged. It was dumb. They won easily. There was no need for that disinformation. You guys are missing the whole point. The people who are at fault are not other people. It is the candidate, Kamala Harris, the previous candidate, Joe Biden, Democratic Party, Democratic leadership. You guys don't want to admit that they're the problem. They're the cancer in the Democratic Party. So you blindly lash out at the voters, at information, at social media, and you want to shut down anyone who disagrees with you. That's not the correct answer.
So I usually don't agree with this guy on too many things, but he makes a good point here. Blaming the voters and saying, well, the voters are just stupid. The real reason she lost is because they were stupid. And the real reason that Trump's president is they just want racist, fascist, blah, 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 blah. Like, why can't you just see, you know what, this strategy of canceling everybody anytime they disagree with you, it's probably going to push people who are on the fence away. It's probably going to push people who maybe even used to be on your side away. Maybe even some politicians, a good amount of major politicians, pushing them away. And for some reason, this guy just can't see that.
Yeah. First of all, let me add a quick fact. There was no massive switch of black voters to Donald Trump. Donald Trump got 13% of the black vote, 11% the last time. That's 2% of a very small segment of voters. So that's one of the big myths of this election. Second big myth is that hindsight is 2020. We have a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks who after the fact are telling us what Harris should and should not have done. And you know, half of them are saying she lost because she was too progressive. She was too open to the charge of being a radical, a socialist. The other half have said, of course, she lost because she wasn't progressive enough. We heard that from Cenk today. It's all sports talk radio without the entertainment. There is no way to know after the fact what she should or should not have done. If she had only done this or that, it would have made a difference. That's just hot air with absolutely no proof. The difference that I bring to the table is a track record of successful prediction based upon how American presidential elections have previously worked as pragmatic decision-making on whether or not the White House party has governed well enough. And then my analysis is based upon what's changed, what's shattered the pattern of 160 years of history. So I have a base for my analysis. I'm not just doing Monday morning quarterbacking. Cenk, you need to learn some manners.
This guy is still, after being completely wrong, after being just terribly wrong, he's still trying to say, well, what I bring to the table is this. What I bring to the table is this. And that's the problem that I have with a lot of academics. The academics that are all theoretical and not practical at all. Literally can see something going on outside and say, well, theoretically, it doesn't make sense that this should happen, so I don't believe it's going on. He literally is acting like he brings something special to the table when he was completely wrong. He was completely wrong. And he's still trying to push this. Let's keep going.
Your act is getting really thin.
I mean, brother, I said what was going to go wrong. It did go wrong. I was right. You were wrong in this election, spectacularly so, with your so-called keys. And now you come and tell us not the Monday
And
morning
unlike you, I'm
quarterback?
willing to admit when I'm wrong.
Are you ever going to learn the lessons?
Can I just ask,
Because what I'm worried about,
hang
guys-
on. Can I just ask, for those who have no idea what the key thing is all about, why are you flashing keys?
Your base for your analysis is wrong. It's wrong. And you know what? Let's look at the 13 keys real quick. Okay? Let's take a look at the 13 keys. Okay, so midterm gains. If it's true, it's blue. No primary contest. I guess that's technically true. Incumbent seeking re-election. No, that's false. No third party. That's true. Strong short-term economy. Most people would say no. Long-term economy. No, most people would say no. Major policy changes. No, not that people are aware of. No social unrest. Yes, there's been social unrest. No scandal, that's true. No foreign military failures, that's false. Okay, without even going all the way through, Trump wins, but let's just turn this blue. Let's turn this blue. Major foreign military success, false. Charismatic incumbent. Okay, she's not charismatic. Oh, again, Trump wins. I don't see how he could have looked at this and said it would be any different. So this guy is just living in, he doesn't even realize his own bias in his own system.
Okay, because this brother said that he had these keys and they were going to determine the outcome of the election, and all the keys were rigged in favor of incumbents. And I tried to explain to him, no, there are things outside of the keys. We literally had a debate, and I asked him, what if Joe Biden, this was back when he was defending Joe Biden, which now seems unconscionable, what if Biden came and punched the baby every single day? Would your keys still hold? And he said yes. Okay, well, then you're an unreasonable person.
I was right.
But what I'm most worried about is not the past,
Let me
it's the
explain
future.
why. I was right.
I mean, listen to him.
About
Biden. You have no idea how absurd you sound.
So look, the truth, as we always say, always cuts through the noise. So let's keep cutting together, not be like this guy. Let's find the truth together, and thank you for watching.